You want to get rid of illegal immigrants, quit eating. And that's for everybody. That's, nationwide. If you want to get rid of them, quit eating. That'll solve the problem.
But when only 5 pickers showed up this morning to harvest his sweet potatoes, farmer Keith Smith saw possible ruin, the loss of his $500,000 crop.
They're running scared because of this new law.
And you're in trouble.
I'm in trouble, bad trouble.
Smith's 200 acres need 20 pickers, mostly Mexican nationals.
There is not enough documented people here to supply that workforce.
Most of your workers are here illegally.
That's sure. If they got documentation, they got a better job working for me.
More than 300 tons of cherries are currently rotting away in the fields thanks to Donald Trump's immigration policies. Orchards across the Pacific Northwest, specifically Oregon, are expecting a larger crop this year than last year. However, much of that crop is currently rotting away because more than 50% of seasonal workers did not show up for the harvest season. Farmers rely on migrants to come from California and other states to help with the harvest season. However, due to the fear of ICE raids, many of them chose not to travel north this year. Many of these orchards had less than 50% of their labor show up on the first day, and it became a race against a short harvest window. Because of this, more than 300 tons of cherries that were destined for canning have become too sweet and are no longer able to be used. Many of these migrants were also coming from Mexico under the H-2A visa program. They were held up for weeks in administrative processes. Bottom line, cherries are perishable and labor is essential to harvest them. Without that support, cherries go to waste, farmers lose out, and prices increase for consumers.
Billionaires are the problems. Immigrants are just the fucking scapegoats. When they remove all the immigrants from this country, do you think their wages are going to increase? Do you think the price of housing is going to go down? Do you think tuition for college is going to go down? Do you think prices for food is going to go down? On top of that, some people blame immigrants for taking our jobs, but don't blame the corporations who purposefully hire them because they know that they will work for a significantly less wage. Who's really at fault here? The immigrants or the people hiring them so that they can pay them less and don't have to pay us more?
Think about this. If you have 13 million undocumented immigrants or illegal aliens, if that's what you want to call them, those 13 million people leave. That's 13 million people that are not buying products, that are not going to our groceries, that are not going to our restaurants, buying our gas, that are not paying rent here in our country, that are not buying clothing, they're not shopping at Walmart, they're not shopping, they're gone. So what then happens to American jobs? If you lose 13 million consumers like that, then there's going to be layoffs. Then these businesses are all going to be affected because their revenues go down. If these people are paying $66 billion just in taxes, to our states and our federal government, what do you think they're consuming? Those taxes are a tiny percentage of what their actual spend in this country is. Though it may be less than 10% of what their spend is, which could put their spend, I'm making this up, I have no idea, their spend could be $600 billion that just marches out of the country. No, that is kicked out of the country aggressively and rudely. We don't benefit from this war on immigrants.
Slavery, white people. Jim Crow, white people. Lynchings, white people. Trail of Tears, white people. Wounded Knee, white people. Asian internment camps, white people. The vast majority of gun violence, white people. You see a trend? January 6th, white people. Ahmaud Arbery, 3 white guys. George Floyd, white guys. The felon in the White House, a white man. You see a trend? But somehow, the white man has convinced stupid, uneducated, trailer park trash, 3-teeth inbreds, white supremacists, Triple K members, that the brown people picking your almonds and your walnuts and your lettuce and your avocados, somehow they're the fucking problem. They're not. We are. And until we grasp that, we can blame and sit here with all of these left bro podcasters and the Pod Save America and the Midas Touches and talk about, oh, it's the cost of eggs. It's the cost of gas. Fuck it is. No, it's not. Why haven't we had a woman president? Why did we go from a black president to the most corrupt white man in the history of our country? Why did the majority of white people, the only demographic that didn't vote for Harris, and that same demographic didn't vote for Zohran Mamdani? because we're the problem. Because there is a chunk of this country that is afraid that the white majority is going away. And they're going to kick and scream like little children, like Santa Claus taking away your present, because they think that their traditional family values is going away. And this country and the Republican Party has done a good job of indoctrinating a bunch of white men. And just me saying this, leave this country, lib, that's indoctrination. It's a fact. Every sentence, this is how it goes. Once upon a time, freedom, God, Jesus, freedom, freedom, Second Amendment. I went on vacation to Hawaii, freedom, Second Amendment, freedom, freedom, bedbold eagles, freedom, the greatest in the world. This is how their brains are working. Because they don't have critical thinking. They've been indoctrinated. And for them to be woke, which means actually seeing this country for what it is, it's breaking their brains. Because they've been lied to their entire life, and their version of American exceptionalism is bullshit. And they know it is, and they don't want it to be, because they want their whiteness to keep them at the top of the food chain. Have yourself a white day.
MAGA farmers wanted mass deportations. They cheered when Trump said he was going to deport them, knowing very well that their farms depend on their labor. They cheered when immigrants were being insulted and being called criminals. But now they realize that they cannot do without immigrants. So let's get to see more. Please like and hype the video and let me know your thoughts in the comments, alright?
I don't want to hear another white person say the word illegal for the rest of my goddamn life. We are living on stolen land. Our ancestors forcibly and violently seized this land from the indigenous peoples who were living here for generations before we ever showed up. We do not get to call them illegal. We don't own the fucking planet. Nobody does.
Undocumented people living in the United States without papers are not criminals, and you should stop saying it because it's a lie. Seriously, I'm going to need all you bootlickers to just stop spreading the lie that undocumented immigrants are criminals. They are not. Being in the United States without papers is not a crime. It's a civil offense, like the same offense that you commit when you exceed the speed limit and get a ticket. It's literally in that same category of law. And the people who keep saying that people who are undocumented are criminals are just flat out racist. Trying to sell to you that people who are here without papers are criminals and they're going to somehow cause crime. And obviously that's bullshit. That's just a fact. And I don't care what your racist brain thinks. That is a fact, and facts don't care about your feelings.
I looked into MAGA to try and figure out where they're coming from, since most people I know come from MAGA households. And honestly, it sounds good on the surface. But once you actually fact check it, let's just say the flag starts looking a little faded. First, let's talk about immigration and the border. MAGA says we're being invaded. Build a wall. Protect American jobs and safety. But here's the thing. Most undocumented immigrants don't even sneak across the border. They come legally and overstay visas. And study after study show that immigrants commit less crime than US-born citizens. Now let's talk economy and trade. MAGA says Trump's tax cuts helped the economy and tariffs helped get jobs back. But reality says the 2017 tax cuts mostly helped billionaires and added trillions to the deficit. And those tariffs, they tanked US farms and raised prices at Walmart. So if your groceries cost more, think the trade wars. Moving on to energy and climate. MAGA says, drill baby drill, energy independence. But the US was already the top oil and gas producer. Like, we didn't need more drilling. Meanwhile, renewable energy is cheaper, growing faster, and creating new jobs. On to culture wars. MAGA says, we're protecting kids from woke indoctrination. We're pro-life. We're protecting the Second Amendment. Overturning Roe v. Wade took away rights the majority of Americans actually support. And most people, even people who own guns, want basic gun safety laws. So whose freedom are they really protecting? And last, let's talk about foreign policy and America first. MAGA says, why pay for NATO or Ukraine? Let's stop endless wars. America first. Sounds nice until you realize NATO keeps us out of wars by having allies. Pulling back leaves power vacuums for Russia and China. America first kinda turns into America alone. So yeah, on the surface, MAGA seems patriotic and simple. But dig a little deeper and the policies either don't add up, or they actually hurt the people they're promising to help. If you're gonna say America first, maybe start with the truth first.
The lack of immigrants in the Central Valley of California and western Arizona is starting to be felt, with farmers there saying that 70 to 80% of their crops are likely to die in the fields. They won't go picked. One farm superintendent said normally he has 300 workers a day, and today he could barely find 50. Another that normally employs 70 a day could barely find 17 today. And these farmers are directly tying this to Donald Trump's immigration policies, saying that the workers that do show up are less productive than ever because they're worried about ICE raids at any given time, and the majority of the workers just don't even bother to show up. They haven't left the country, they're just hiding, because when they leave their homes, they're arrested and they're detained by individuals claiming to be ICE who may or may not be. And a lot of them say it's not worth the risk to just disappear, because that's what they've seen. Their family members and their friends have just gone to work one day and disappeared, never to be heard from again. Some are showing up months later in countries that they're not from, they have no affiliation with, and they've never been to. But others have been missing for months, and nobody knows where they are.
I just saw a video of fields of watermelons just rotting there. Piles of watermelons, heaps of watermelons, because of Ron DeSantis's stance on immigration and the e-verification program that he put into place to catch undocumented workers. Now, we all know this put a strain on the construction industry, it put a strain on the agricultural industry, and probably at the hotels, probably with the maids and such. What's the end game? Florida, what y'all gonna do? Because although this affects you instantaneously, it's going to eventually affect the world, because crops that come from Florida aren't getting harvested to get to the other states in America, driving up prices.
So you wanted proof that the immigration policy would be affecting everyone? Look at your grocery bill next month and the next coming months. ICE ramped up raids in places like Ventura County and parts of the Central Valley fields in California. They went through fields, they went through houses, you name it, grabbing people up. Now, farmers are seeing up to 70% of their workers not showing up to work, left by fear of being arrested. And that means fruits, vegetables are going unharvested, which means they're going to go bad in the fields. A 1/6 generation farmer put it like this: if 70% of your labor force vanishes, so does your crop. And most local workers don't want to pick these plants. And it's a real worry. Cropland is worth nearly $60 billion, and that could be at risk of going into bankruptcy, being sold off to the next bidder, and that bidder may not be an American company. That could be a problem. Workers themselves are scared. One said, if I show up to work, I don't know if I'll ever come home to see my family again. The bottom line is, this isn't just hurting farms. It could raise food prices and disrupt supply chains nationwide.
You know, if you listen to the Trump administration, undocumented immigrants are a drain on our economy. And that's not necessarily true. Did you know that in 2022, undocumented immigrants contributed almost $100 billion to federal, state, and local tax bases? That probably comes as a surprise. It surprised me a little bit as well that it would be that much. Did you also know that undocumented immigrants actually pay into Social Security, but because they're undocumented and can't apply for it, they're not eligible to receive the benefits? $12 billion in 2022. Did you know that between the years of 2024 and 2034, the undocumented immigrants in this country will contribute $1.2 trillion to the federal tax base? And that doesn't come from me or some liberal out there trying to make a case. That comes from the Congressional Budget Office, So undocumented immigrants are not a drain on the economy. They actually contribute to it. Things like Social Security and Medicare. But they don't take anything out of the system. Listen, I understand the position on illegal immigration, but at least be honest about it. They're not the drain on the country that people make them out to be. And the other thing you have to consider is Donald Trump routinely comes up with these really simple solutions. Let's take them all out without considering the long-term implications and the impact that his decision is going to make on the country. Let's not forget that during his first administration, he ran a federal deficit that I believe was the most in the country's history, and he's about to do it again. Listen, these things have consequences. You cannot come up with really simple solutions to complex problems, but that's what you're always going to get from this president. I just hope we haven't made one of the biggest mistakes of our life, because if you think the economic conditions in the country are bad now and you want to blame them all on Biden, when they get worse, you're going to have no one else to blame it on but Donald Trump.
The harsh truth is that America cannot do without immigrants. For many years, many undocumented immigrants have been doing some of the most hardest and most physically demanding jobs in America. They work under the hot sun and for long hours, jobs that many Americans are not willing to do because they are poorly paid also. But many Americans who insult immigrants, they don't realize the contribution that they make into the American society. When they go to the grocery store and see tomatoes, onions, strawberries, apples, and other products, they forget that behind that food, there are human beings. Someone had to plant it. Someone had to take care of it, harvest it, pack it, and transport it, you see? So you cannot spend years saying that we don't need these immigrants, while at the same time, depending on their labor to keep your farm running. You cannot deport them and then turn around and say, please come back and harvest our crops, you know? You cannot say they are criminals simply because they don't have papers. These people have spent years building life in America. They have families. They have children, homes, friendship, businesses. They pay taxes and they participate in their communities. And this does not mean that immigration laws, they don't matter at all. Of course they do, but there's a big difference between enforcing immigration laws and dehumanizing an entire group of people. A person can lack legal immigration status and still being a human being, deserving of dignity and even respect. You see, many people don't realize that the economy is very connected. But when politicians convince people that immigrants are the problem, people don't look to stop and look at what happens later. When the immigrants are gone, farm workers disappear, construction workers disappear, restaurant workers disappear, cleaners, caregivers, and so on. So one person's work affects another person's lives. So if you want the labor, respect the laborer. If you want food, respect the people who help produce it. If you want a strong economy, then you should respect the people who keep the economy moving. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.